Hey guys, Trevor here. Today I want to talk about the 5 things that I do to prepare for a trip, whether it's a local trip just a couple of miles away from your home, or it's a weekend trip. Some of the things that I do to make sure that I'm prepared and I have an idea of what I'm going to do once I hit that trailhead. Right now I am out at Colditz Cove State Recreation Area or State Natural Area in northeastern Tennessee. It's beautiful. These caves or cliffs are enormous. I know the video doesn't necessarily do it justice, but I'll throw up a couple of photos that I took here, as well as some video that I took from my hike today. So like I mentioned, there's a handful of things that I like to do before I even get out on a trail to prepare for myself for a hiking/photography session. And the whole intention here is just to declutter my brain, for lack of a better term. I find I'm most focused and I'm able to really just enjoy myself when I'm out there, when I've taken care of a lot of these things up front. Nothing worse than getting on the trail and not having the trail map and getting lost in the trail or delaying yourself that way, or not having a Google Map downloaded to be able to get to the location or get to your next location, making sure you have enough water, those types of things. So here's sort of the top 5 things that I do, sort of group them into 5 different things to make sure that I am getting myself prepared. That way I am able to focus in on the photography. I'm able to enjoy myself out on the trail and not be bogged down with a million things on my mind. So the first thing, and probably the most obvious of the 5 things I'm going to cover, is downloading Google Maps ahead of time. I know as a starting photographer or hiker, a lot of times I wouldn't do this. I would just rely on signal. GPS signal, and a lot of times obviously you get deep down a forest road or into a state park and you lose signal and you don't have any way to look at a map. It's usually pretty easy to get out there to the first location, but then if you have multiple locations planned, it's hard to get to the next location if you don't have a good map to get you there. So the first thing I do is to download a Google Map. I'm going to show you what I do, and apologize for staring at my phone, but that's one of the easiest ways to do it is either on your iPhone or Android device, or you could do it on your laptop and save it so that you have it. You can pull it up on your device at a later time. But basically what I do is I'll find the location. In this case, I'm going to reference the hike that I showed you earlier, and that's the Colditz Cove State Natural Area. So I'll look at that, and what I'll do is I'll zoom out and I'll find the closest town. It's a little bit funky the way that Google Maps does it. I don't know if Apple Maps is a little bit different, but you can't download a map based on a specific landmark. You actually have to look for the closest town. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll look and I'll see Jamestown or Allarts. So either one of those will work. So what I'll do is I'll go in here and I'll do Jamestown, Tennessee, because I was out in Tennessee. And what you'll see is down here, you'll see the directions button highlighted. If you scroll over, you'll see at the very end a link that says download. Click that. It's going to hyper focus in on the town that you've selected. So what you want to do is you'll want to use your fingers to scroll out and cover as big of a swath of an area as you think that you'll need for the entirety of your trip. And it always makes sense to go a little bit bigger than you expect, just in case something comes up, you find another location in the area that you're interested while you're already out there. So what I'll do is I'll come out pretty big. I mean, it takes up, here it says it's taking up 40 megabits of space, which isn't huge for iPhones and Android devices these days. In worst case scenario, once you're done with your trip, you can always delete it off of your phone. That way you can free up more space. So that's what I'll do, and then I'll just click download. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is if you are going out and you have sort of a plan B, You can obviously go back and reference the episode that I put together around pre-planning. It was episode 1 actually, where I discussed plan A versus plan B and how I sort of plan out the actual hikes that I'm going to do. So what I'll do in this scenario is I will download maps for each of those different plans, my primary plan and my backup plans. That way I'm covered across the board and I have maps for each of those areas. So you're going to know more about my planning process around how I select actual locations dependent on weather and things like that. Go back and check out episode 1. I'll link it up above, that way you have quick access to it. But I'm going to jump into sort of my tip number 2 for how I, again, declutter my brain, make sure I'm taking care of everything up front before I actually get on the trail. And that is downloading the trail map on All Trails. If you don't have All Trails, well worth downloading. I actually suggest even upgrading to the Pro. I know it can be a little bit pricey for an annual subscription, but again, well worth it to be able to download trails, to be able to record your hikes, and have that right on your phone. I know it's saved me in a bunch of cases where I've maybe made a wrong turn or don't know exactly where to go on a trail. So definitely suggest downloading that app if you haven't already, and then going in and downloading any trails that you plan on doing during your trip. Again, if you plan on doing one hike but you have a couple of things in mind as backups, I suggest just going through and downloading all of those. That way you're covered, no questions asked. So what I'll do, and this is probably pretty obvious for folks that use All Trails a bit more religiously, but if you're new to All Trails, what you do is you just go in here and it'll give you sort of a search bar at the top where you can enter either the park or the trail name. So I'm going to go ahead and enter the trail name. It's actually Northrop Falls. You can see pops up right away. And once you go in here, you'll see a few options in these white buttons at the top of the page. You're going to click download, and it gives you a bunch of options. I always stick to just doing the All Trails option. I actually haven't messed around with any of the others, but if you have the app on your phone and you download the All Trails map, it will automatically store it to your phone's storage, and you'll be able to access it whether you have signal or not out there on the trail. So just go ahead and click that little icon, the little down arrow, and it will start downloading for you. So that's what I do, and again, I'll do that for every trail that I'm considering for the day. That way I'm ready to go. All Trails also gives you the option of saving the trails that you downloaded to a list. It's maybe a little bit less obvious on the screen, but there is a little bookmark ribbon type icon in the upper right hand corner. Click that and it'll bring up a list. So if I wanted to create a new list just for this Tennessee trip, I could do that. And again, it's just a great way to keep everything organized so that when you're on the trail, if you've downloaded a bunch of different maps, trail maps within All Trails for different trips, that you have everything consolidated for your trip at hand in a single folder. All right, so enough about downloading maps. Maybe those two are a little bit more obvious for folks that have sort of been there, done that when it comes to photography and hiking. Tip number 3 is a little bit more unique, maybe something that some folks do, but I don't know that a whole lot of people do it. And that's to actually take screenshots of the place that you're going to visit. And I do this in a number of different ways. I'll go out and search in Google Images for the places that I'm planning on hiking to. I'll look on Instagram, find some pictures that I really like of that location. I'll screenshot those as well. Even in All Trails, again, just going in there and taking a look at what some of the folks that have recorded their hikes have taken pictures of. And I'll take those screenshots and they'll just sit within my photos folder on my iPhone. So I have them with me when I hit the trail. And the reason I do that, so I like to think about the composition that I'm actually going to take before I get to the location. Some of the cases I'll see what other people have done before in terms of composition, think about how I could either improve that composition or do something entirely different. I try and steer clear of just copying completely what somebody's done. And I look for opportunities to say, okay, well, if I was there, this is what I would have done a little bit differently. So that's the first half of it, is just doing the research up front and planning the composition that I want to have, but then also being able to reference those pictures back to those pictures once I'm on location is huge. Because once you get there, sometimes you can get a little bit overwhelmed with a place, especially if there's a lot of different composition opportunities. So it's always good to just take a step back, look through some of those photos and sort of set a foundation on, okay, here's the things that I'm going to try. Maybe even trying some of those compositions that you've seen just to get your feet wet when you're out there shooting, and then moving on to some of the more unique compositions that will sort of appear to you once you've spent some time at that location. So I'm going to share up some of the, just a collage of pictures that I screenshotted. I'm going to white out the names for any of the Instagram photos, that way I'm protecting people's privacy, but I'll just throw up a bunch of pictures that I downloaded for this specific trip. So tip number 4 is something I know that everyone is already aware of, but it bears repeating, especially when we're on the topic of decluttering your brain so that you can get out there and really just focus in on your shoot and enjoying your hike, not worrying about a bunch of different things. And that's preparing your bag and ensuring that you have everything that you need realistically the night before you're going to go out. I know for me, I'm a person that likes to go out, shoot sunrise early in the morning, so I make sure that I've packed everything up and double checked it the night before. So I'll bring a giant water bottle. I think this is a 32-ounce Nalgene bottle. I love it. It's gotten a lot of use. It's probably overkill for a lot of trails, but I fill it up to the top and bring it with me. Never hurts to have too much water. I know it can be a little bit heavy, but well worth it just in case you get yourself into a sticky situation. Also bring snacks along. Always important to throw a couple snacks in there. Spare batteries for your camera, making sure that you've packed those away and that they're charged and ready to go. Again, doing that in advance notice, not waiting until the morning of to get all that stuff taken care of. And then even for me, again, I like to do a lot of sunrise hikes or sunset hikes. Bring a couple of spare, just in this case, I think it's AAA batteries for my headlamp, just in case the onboard battery drains out. That way I'm not stuck in the dark. But again, you're just making sure that you're taking care of all of that stuff in advance. That way you're not waking up the morning of and scrambling and you're frazzled going out the door. And along those lines, I'm probably going to sound a little bit like your mechanic, but making sure that whatever vehicle you're taking, you've taken care of anything there before your trip. Fill up that tank of gas, check your tire pressure, make sure you've had an oil change, all those types of things. Because if you're anything like me, a lot of my driving is on gravel forest roads to get to those prime locations. So the last thing you want is to be stuck out there and be panicking trying to find a gas station, or in my case, I've had one situation where I had smoke coming out from under my hood. So make sure you take care of all of your car maintenance before you plan on taking off and hitting the trail. My 5th and last tip is to check the weather. I did an extensive episode on this. It's episode 2. I'll link it up above so that you can check that out. But checking the weather the day before and then even the morning of, as soon as you wake up, just to make sure that the conditions are what you expect them to be, because if they aren't, that may change your entire plans. But again, if you've downloaded the maps for not only your primary plan, but your backup plan, and that includes your Google map and your All Trails map, you should be all set. But again, to avoid being frazzled when you're headed out for a hike, that's the first thing I do when that alarm clock goes off before the day of a hike, is I will go check the weather apps, make sure everything's still what I expected it to be from the night before. And then if it's not, I already have everything downloaded and I have my plan B all set up. And I'm ready to go, and I avoid that anxiety or stress of trying to figure out what my plan is going to be when everything else is sort of gone by the wayside. So yeah, that's tip number 5. I hope this has been helpful. These are things that I've sort of learned through experience over the past few years of being out there hiking and doing photography. I've fallen trapped to every one of these and not doing them, and have found myself to be all worked up because things aren't going according to plan. But you live and you learn, and those are the 5 primary things that I do now before any hike, and I've noticed a huge difference in that I am just a little bit more at peace when I'm out there hiking, and I'm able to focus in on what I'm actually going to shoot and just enjoying the hike in general, because I've done sort of the hard work up front. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you are enjoying the content, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. I'm enjoying making these. My next episode will probably be around a little bit of a different topic. It should be interesting, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys out there on the trail.